Don't hate the players nor the game of life. Inspired by the book The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. Also inspired by Romans 12:2, which states, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will." As we've been discussing, the illusions of I, the illusions of separation, may seem to suggest that God is not the source of prosperity, that the outer appearances of life is the source of prosperity. That is an illusion of I, and by that I mean the foundational reality from which all individuals arise from, and also all prosperity arises from, is God. And God is not separate from the individual as being still. The individual feels the presence of God, which is the point we could say, I realize that I and the Father are one. And in that moment, there's a complete void of separation, thus void of hate towards the players and the game. There's only love known and a certainty that prosperity arises from this sure foundation of God, and thus all individuals' divine inheritance. There's only one source, I am. That's God's name, Exodus 3:14. And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. The sure foundation, beyond the illusions of I, the sure foundation which I arise from. Now the individual might not know, based on inaccurate thinking, that God is the source of prosperity, and may generate illusions of I, persisting stubbornly in false beliefs of hate. So today's conversation is designed to inspire you to return to the source. Return to the source of all prosperity. God. God who appears, who animates all that appears, to appear to be in harmony and in contribution to manifesting your prosperity. To imagine otherwise would be identification to the illusions of I, such as hating the players, hating the game of life. By being still, you clearly realize that all people, all circumstance, all information, everything is actually in harmony and in contribution to manifesting your prosperity. She says, there's nothing too great of accomplishment for the individual who knows the power of his word and who follows his intuitive leads. God is the source of prosperity. Conformity to the patterns of the world are the result of identification to the illusions of I. The individual may think, I need to hate this person, or this aspect of life, or how life works. Those are illusions of I. Personal experience has taught me this as well. As mentioned, when I was growing up, I would hear the statement, "Don't hate the player, hate the game." Why would I hate the player or the game? Unless I thought that the player or the game was not rigged in my favor. It's an untrue illusion of I. Everything and everyone appears to be in harmony and in contribution to actualizing your prosperity. How so? Well, when I was building my IT business, I noticed that as a result of releasing identification to the illusions of I, that was generating the illusions of separation in the relationships with my clients, vendors, team members, sure enough, conversations would flow, deals would appear. And even if it did appear at times that I made a proposition to a prospect and they were not interested in that product or service, or so it appeared, I found that later on they would appear and they would want to do business with me. Or they may even choose to refer people to me. I've seen this happen a number of times. I had conversations with prospects. I did my sales presentation. They appeared to not be interested in my offer. Yet, I get a phone call from someone, and this person tells me that this other person that I made a presentation to said that it would be great to work with you. So, if I judged by appearances, and I said, this person does not want to buy my product or service, and I conclude with a statement like, this means I am not good enough, it is clear that it is an untrue statement. It's an illusion of I. For I am love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, prosperity, unconditionally so, and thus not conditioned by the illusions of I. That I may think of separation between the source of prosperity, the source of happiness, the source of peace, the source of bliss, the source of fulfillment. Yet, are those thinking patterns true? As stated in Romans 12:2, testing and approving what God's will is, God's good, pleasing, and perfect will, is a matter of releasing those identifications, releasing those illusions of I. Let's talk about how. So, 3 sections here. Number 1, do not conform to the outer appearances. Do they appear to be from the premise of truth? Knowing that I am prosperity. If it is not from the premise of truth, then by being still, I release those identifications. That's it. Release those identifications by being still. And sure enough, it changes. As the illusion of I is released, what appears? Well, delight, as we talked about in Tuesday's video, which I'll link to in the description. Delight appears. Delight in the form of prosperity. Personal experience again. I remember I was identified with an illusion of I. The illusion of separation between I and I am. Knowing that I am the infinite source and prosperity, which I receive within through intuition. So one time, I was doing this business deal with a client, and I got caught up in a project that was generating a lot of resistance, or so it appeared. The resistance was indicating that I was forcing myself to do this deal. So I realized that there's only one cause, and the true nature of this cause is perfect and pleasing. So it was clearly an untrue belief that was generating that appearance that I was identified with. So I went for a walk. It's this particular area that I like to walk, which is actually pretty close to me. But whatever the reason may be, when I walk in this area, I experience stillness. I can be still in the presence of God, and thus experience the presence of God as love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, prosperity, and those illusions of I dissolve. And clarity arises. And how did it arise? Well, it arose as an idea to connect with a person that I was doing business with before, who was interested in doing this role for this other client, who gladly wanted to do that role. So I called her up, and she gladly accepted to do that role. It was very profitable for her. It was her form of prosperity. As a result of the service that she provided this client, the client also experienced prosperity to a higher degree. And I also experienced prosperity to a higher degree. As I had delegated that particular project, I was involved then with another initiative that brought even more revenue in, and also it was a revenue source that I genuinely desired to do. That's an example of not conforming to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then I tested it and proved it. You'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. Now she says, in relation to point number 1, as the individual becomes spiritually awakened, they recognize that any external inharmony is the correspondence of mental inharmony. If they stumble or fall, they may know they are stumbling or falling in consciousness. A shift occurs. The individual may have thought that they were the effect of the world, which is a result of conforming to the pattern of this world, which is an illusion. When the shift then occurs, the individual begins to operate from the premise of truth, knowing that I am love, happiness, peace, bliss, prosperity, fulfillment. Thus, I am aware of what I relate to the appearances as I can only imagine, and thus generate the appearances accordingly, either from the premise of truth or from identification, the illusions of I, to untrue beliefs. So we could call this assuming full responsibility, so that the individual can only witness then the outer appearance to be from the premise of truth, witnessing God as a form. God is the source of prosperity, and thus the individual witnesses God in, on, and as the outer appearances of God. The next is calling for intuitive leads. So the practical step here for number 1, the do not conform to the outer appearances, is to deny the untrue interpretation of the evidence of the senses. Be still to release that identification. Exactly like how I did. Or you could do something like that. I trust you've done this before. This is not new to you. You've done this before. I've done this many times. This is only one example out of many examples. Number 2, calling for intuitive leads. So as mentioned, I listen exclusively to intuition because intuition always guides the way to actualizing my prosperity. And I do not seek then to argue with this world, hate the players, hate the game of life, as that would generate unnecessary, illusory theater for no reason other than to reveal the identification so that it can be released. Yet the individual may witness in their mind's eye those thoughts before they identify with. So if those thoughts arise, release them. Do not identify with them. Like we discussed in the 7-day mental and emotional diet video, which I'll link to in the description. I trust you'll enjoy and benefit greatly from that conversation. She said, "It is therefore of the utmost importance to choose the right words. The right words. The right words mean from the premise of truth: love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, prosperity. That is true nature. Everything else is unreal and thus untrue. This is what is meant by right words." She says, and the student carefully selects the affirmation, the autosuggestion they wish to catapult into the visible, drawing from the infinite source of prosperity to appear in, on, and as outer appearances of God. She says, they know that God is their supply, that there is a supply for every demand, and that this spoken word releases this supply. Ask and ye shall receive. The individual must make the first move. Draw nigh to God, and God will draw nigh to you. I have often been asked just how to make a demonstration. She said, I reply, speak the word and do not do anything until you get a definite lead. Say, Infinite Spirit, reveal to me the way. Let me know if there's anything for me to do. So again, going back to my example earlier, I was not thinking accurately. I was identified with doubt. I was confused. I was uncertain as a result of the identification to the illusions of I, the illusions of separation between I and I am. I and the Father are one, yet the Father is greater than I. So can I witness greater outer appearances of prosperity with increasing frequency on a continuous basis? Certainly. That is true nature. We could say that is what God desires for you, which is a harmonious relationship with God. So at that time, it was appropriate to not do anything, because whatever I was appearing to do at that time, from the identification to the untrue beliefs, was generating more apparent confusion, convoluted behaviors, unnecessary resistance. I went for a walk, and I was able to be still in the presence of God. Clarity arose, and that was the definite intuitive lead. The next is non-resistance into transmutation. Non-resistance into transmutation. She says, nothing on earth can resist an absolutely non-resistant person. The way to be non-resistant is to be still. She says, resistance is hell, for it places the individual in a state of torment. If the individual desires to reveal physically their inherent prosperity, yet there is resistance, if the individual has a conversation with that emotional resistance, they will bring awareness to illusions of I, generating that resistance. And so she gives a wonderful recipe, which I've been practicing as well over the years since I first read this book, and it works wonderfully. She said, a metaphysician once gave me a wonderful recipe for taking every trick in the game of life. It is the acme of non-resistance. He gave it in this way. At one time in my life, I baptized children, and of course, they had many names. Now I no longer baptize children, but I baptize events. But I give every event the same name. If I have a failure, I baptize it success. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. In this, we see the great law of transmutation founded on non-resistance. So this is key. Not resisting the appearances. So with the do not conform to the pattern of this world, it is simply bringing awareness to what is untrue so that it may be released, and then it disappears. As I mentioned many times, why do illusions appear? Illusions appear to disappear. All that remains is God. As the illusions of I are released, true nature is revealed as prosperity. There's only God appearing, only God animating all that appears to appear in, on, and as the outer appearances of God. As we discussed again in Tuesday's video, the single I. And so that's one of the reasons why that statement of don't hate the players, hate the game is, you could say, a band-aid solution, because what is there to hate when there's only love? The single I can only imagine love, thus appearing to mediate God to all that appears to appear as harmonious relationships. So she gives an example. She says, a woman who required money and who knew the spiritual law of opulence was thrown continually in a business way with a man who made her feel very poor. He talked lack and limitation, and she commenced to catch his poverty thoughts. So she disliked him and blamed him for her failure. She knew in order to demonstrate her supply, she must first feel that she had received. A feeling of opulence must precede its manifestation. It dawned upon her one day that she was resisting the situation and seeing two powers instead of one. We discussed this as well in one of the videos where we were discussing Lessons in Truth by H. Emily Cady, realizing that you exist beyond the illusions of evil. I'll link in the description to that particular video. And so there's only one power, beyond the illusions of the evil power, we could say. There's only God, and God is good. Thus, again, Romans 12:2, do not conform to the pattern of this world, which means release identification to the illusions of I. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. There's only one true cause that does everything harmoniously. She said it dawned upon her one day that she was resisting the situation and seeing two powers instead of one. The truth is, I, the individual, appears as a witness of God, the eye of God, the single eye. She says, so she blessed the man and baptized the situation. Success. She affirmed, as there is only one power, God, this man is here for my good and my prosperity, as in I can only witness prosperity, true nature. She says, just what he did not seem to be there for. Soon after that she met, through this man, a woman who gave her for a service rendered several $1,000s. And the man moved to a distant city and faded harmoniously from her life. Make the statement, every individual is a golden link in the chain of my good. For all individuals are God in manifestation, awaiting the opportunity given to us to serve the divine plan of our life. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You could say, I realize that illusions appear to disappear as all that remains is true nature, knowing that I am the source of prosperity, which appears more so in increasing frequency on a continuous basis through the single eye, the eye of God. Thus I remain in my flow, witnessing wherever I appear prosperity, which is true nature, as promised by God. in, on, and as the outer appearances of God, as I know every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon, that I have given to you, as I promised to Moses. Joshua 1:3. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.